Hi everyone, Happy New Year, it's Vesper. It's been about 5 months since my last life update video and a lot has been going on with my family, so I figured it's about time that I make another life update video. And this video is going to be hella long because that's just what happens when a lot happens and I don't update you guys for so long. Sorry. Also, apologies for all the background noise. I am recording this on a weekday in the morning before I go to work and there's a lot of traffic because I live next to a busy street and my walls are paper thin. Sorry, tried to ignore it. Japan background music again. Those of you who are just tuning in or just haven't seen my older videos, this is going to be the continuation of a long saga of drama between me and my family, especially my mom, so I should probably fill you guys in a little before I start. But there are several other older videos on this channel that will give you the details of stuff that has gone on. If you'd like to check out those videos, I'll put the links to them in the description of this video. Basically, I was forced out of the closet in February 2014 when my mom discovered this YouTube channel and proceeded to watch every single video that was on the channel at the time. Yeah. I had, prior to that, actually decided to never come out to her for various reasons. I even made a video about why I decided to never come out to her. And obviously that whole plan went up in smoke. My mom, who is a Christian minister, very strong and vocal in her beliefs, did not understand or agree with any of the things that she saw on my channel, obviously. So what followed her watching those videos were like 2 years of really stressful, hurtful conversations between me and her. And at one point she even outed me to my little sister as asexual, which obviously is not okay. And it's just been a lot of drama because she doesn't get it, and even if she's trying to get it, she says so many hurtful things along the way that eventually, in July of last year, July 2015, I did end up cutting off communication with her. And I think that's where I left my last life update video. She sent me this birthday card that had stuff in it that really set me off, and I sent her an email saying don't talk to me anymore, and then we didn't talk. And that lasted for 2 months. Fast forward to September. She started trying to reach out to me, making any excuse to try and talk to me or to get me to talk to her. So that's after 2 months of silence between us. Finally, I decided to give her a chance because she seemed really desperate to try and reestablish communication. So I gave her a chance. The conversation ended up being like over 2 hours long and it was all over the place. I was extremely frank and very short-fused with her because that's how I tend to be when I'm on the defense and I'm just upset because, you know, we've had so many conversations in the past like this, and for a while it felt like that conversation was just going to be a repeat of previous ones, and I almost gave up on the whole thing several times. But I hung in there because of how hard, at least this time, she seemed to be trying. I gave her the benefit of a doubt. After hours of talking, she still didn't want to use my name, and this is something that we've gone over a million times in previous conversations, and I have told her that really upsets me, but she was like, can I be the one exception? I don't care if everybody else calls you by that name, but I've known you since you were born. Can I be the one exception and still call you by the name I gave you because, you know, that's how I feel? She was being really selfish, as she's been since day one, but after hours of talking and going back and forth, I finally seemed to be able to get through to her how much her words hurt and how much it would mean to me if she would use my actual name, that my feelings about my name trump her feelings about my name. It's not her name. And so at the end of that conversation, I felt like I got somewhere on the name front, finally, after over 1.5 years of trying. I also tried again to explain to her why me distancing myself from her and from my family in general was a form of self-care, and I've made a whole video about distancing myself from family, so check out that video. But Again, I tried to explain to her why I just needed distance, and again, she was still offended by the idea that I would need distance from her. But she did go on to say some things that I never imagined that I'd hear coming from her. When I brought up surgeries that I'd probably be getting in the future and how I knew she wouldn't be supportive of me getting them, she surprisingly said that even if she doesn't support what I'm doing, she would still be there to help me with recovery. And that meant the world coming from her. I never thought I'd hear her say those words. I, for years, had been mentally preparing myself to go through surgeries and other things alone with only the help of a hired nurse, because I was certain that I wouldn't have anyone in the hospital with me going through those things. But here she was saying that she would help me with recovery, and if you haven't seen my other videos, you probably don't know just how much that means. I decided to push things further because since being outed almost 2 years ago, my mom has continuously avoided any discussion of my multi-gender attraction. So I asked her how she would respond if in the future I ended up being in a relationship with someone who wasn't male, and her response, not surprisingly, was that she does not believe in gay marriage. And that's not shocking. She is a Christian, a minister, very devout. But she then went on to say that even though she does not believe in gay marriage and she would not recognize a marriage between me and someone who isn't male, she did add that even though she wouldn't recognize the marriage, she would recognize the significance that that person would have in my life, and she would not reject that person. Again, okay, you need to go back and watch my originally being outed video, because she has come so far in almost 2 years to be able to say that. You have no idea. That is like almost, not quite, is not the best thing she could have said. She's still, the whole gay marriage thing, but that is a lot coming from her. A lot. So with that conversation, it became clear that she is trying really hard to change and to learn. So after that, I decided to start talking to her again regularly. Fast forward to this past November, a really awesome documentary was aired on BET called Holler If You Hear Me, Black and Gay in the Church. And I was beside myself excited over this documentary because even though I'm not religious, my mom obviously is, and this documentary still spoke to my childhood being a kid growing up in the church. So I could not send a link to this documentary to my mom fast enough. Long story short, both my mom and my little sister ended up watching that documentary, and that resulted in me having to come out to my little sister again as bi-romantic, pan-romantic. And apparently my sister had completely forgotten that I'd even come out as asexual to her months ago, so I ended up coming out as asexual, bi, and pan, and my sister took it well. She tried her best to be supportive, which was awesome. It means a lot. But my mom and my sister then ended up kind of ganging up on me with all this biphobic, bi-erasure bullshit. And obviously that was unpleasant. Everyone is bi, apparently. Blah, 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 blah. I'm not even going to rehash all the shit that they said. But some other noteworthy things ended up coming out of that conversation too. At this point, I'm going to have to pause and throw out a huge trigger warning. Huge trigger warning. I am about to talk about abuse, specifically sexual abuse and child abuse. So if you don't want to hear about these topics, please do yourself a favor. Do skip ahead to the time point that I'm going to put on the screen to skip this whole discussion entirely. Please do respect your triggers. If you think this might even mildly trigger you, skip ahead. Skip ahead now. 3, 2, 1, 0. In the BET documentary, there was a gay man who talked about being molested as a kid and how he feels that his molestation is connected to him being gay. And I'm not going to even comment on that and my feelings about that, but of course my mom, who is ever on a quest to explain away my gender, my sexuality, honed in on that specific section of the video and commented about it to me. As she brought up that part of the documentary, she suddenly got emotional and decided to tell me something that in 30 years she had not so much as hinted at ever. She said that when I was around 1 year old, I was molested by a female staff member at my daycare. And here she was, my mom who never cries. Tears were running down her face. She was obviously very upset, feeling very guilty, and I'm sure a million other emotions that she had kept buried inside her for 30 years, all coming out to the surface as she told me this. Meanwhile, there I was, not sure how I was supposed to be feeling about the story being told to me, about something that I had no memory of. I wasn't upset, and I'm still not upset. What upset me was seeing my mom so emotional and obviously still blaming herself for something that obviously wasn't her fault. I was also very miffed because my mom obviously would have gone to her grave without having ever told me this story. She was just now telling me this story as if it was some kind of potential explanation for my sexuality and my gender, and how am I supposed to feel about that on top of everything else? So aside from trying to comfort her, because what happened really wasn't her fault, I genuinely believe that, I also insisted to her that what happened has nothing to do with anything. It has no bearing on my sexuality or my gender. And for me personally, I can't speak about anyone else, for me personally, I truly believe that has nothing to do with anything for me. But, yeah. Truth is, I'm still not sure how I'm supposed to feel about all of this. I really don't feel any kind of way, which is probably why it's so easy for me to just tell you all of this, because I don't feel any particular way. I don't even remember what apparently happened, so yeah. Fast forward to last month, so December 2015, I had bought tickets home to Las Vegas a year in advance. And as the departure date got closer and closer, my nerves and anxiety went through the fucking roof. I bought those tickets a year in advance. I bought them before any of the drama that happened this year even went down. And it would be my first time back in Las Vegas, back around my family in 2 years, over 2 years. So it would also be my first time back around my family since being outed. And yeah, the feels and the stress, it was crazy. By the time I got off the plane in Las Vegas, I was so anxious and stressed out, it was ridiculous. I spent 9 days with my extremely dysfunctional family, and not only that, I was under the same roof as my mom and my sister the entire time. I'm glad to say that I survived, obviously, but it was one hell of an emotional and mental roller coaster ride. Before going, I had resolved myself to coming out to my little sister as non-binary while I was there, because I much rather do that face-to-face in person than over a video chat. And it took me 5 days to get up the nerve and to find the opportunity to do so. And those 5 days were some of the most stressful and anxious days of my life, I swear. I couldn't enjoy my trip or my time back in America at all until I got this over with. The day before coming out, I went to Barnes & Noble, a bookstore, and I bought a book that I saw recommended online. And It's a children's book, obviously, but I don't fucking care. I love illustration, and it's awesome. It's called Red, A Crayon Story by Michael Hall. And to give you a basic rundown of the story, it's about a crayon that was labeled red at the factory, but obviously isn't red, is actually blue. But it tries to be red. It tries to live up to the label that the factory assigned it, but fails horribly at it, and in the end accepts itself as being what it is. And it's a really awesome story that I recommend to everyone, regardless of how old you are. But it was recently published. I really wish I had had this book as a kid. Obviously I couldn't, and I'm not a kid anymore, but I bought it to add to my collection because, yeah, it's fucking awesome. Buy it. Anyway, one of the things that stressed me out the most about coming out as non-binary to my sister was that she's autistic and she struggles to understand certain things that revolve around language and things that are very heavily socially coded. I don't know how to better explain it, but here I was going to have to explain gender to her, something that many people struggle to understand in general. And not only that, I was going to have to tell her that there are more than two genders, that I'm neither male nor female, and all of this revolves around, language and socially coded bullshit. So yeah, I was stressing out a lot about that. So I decided to use the book Red to help me do that. So anyway, I sat her down, I gave her the book to read without any real explanation aside from saying that I had a new book and I'd like her to check it out. I sat there next to her as she read it. After she read it, she told me what she thought about it, and I used that as a jumping point to come out. So I compared myself to Red, saying that society labeled me as female, but like Red isn't red, I'm not female, and that there are as many genders as there are colors. Long story short, she more or less got it. Actually, to my surprise, she even mentioned having seen the show I Am Jazz about a trans teen that was on TV recently, I guess. I had no idea she'd even seen this show, but she mentioned it, so obviously the existence of trans people was already on her radar, and that was really awesome, although the existence of non-binary people obviously wasn't. She tried her best to be really supportive, even though she still doesn't and didn't understand, there being more than two genders, but she tried her best to be supportive, and that meant a lot. I then went on to tell her that I am going to legally change my name in the future, that I would really appreciate it if she would from now on refer to me as Vesper. She commented that she really liked my assigned name, but that she would try her best to call me Vesper from now on. And she has. In fact, 5 minutes after coming out to her, I heard her downstairs talking to my mom, correcting my mom about my name. And she handled the whole thing better than I could have ever imagined. From then on, both my mom and my sister have been making an effort to refer to me as Vesper, and they slip up a lot, but I am very gentle and yet consistent and kind of firmly correcting them whenever they do slip up. I try to casually say, they say my birth name, my assigned name, I say, you mean Vesper? Or Vesper, like under my breath when they're in the middle of a sentence and they throw out the wrong name. I'm very consistent with trying to correct them in the hopes that it will help it stick better. But for the remaining 4 days of my trip, having both of them refer to me as Vesper, it meant the world. Like, almost 2 years ago, I never would have imagined that either of them would be using that name. My mom was so adamant about never using that name to refer to me, but here she was doing her best, even correcting herself at times when she slipped up. And 2 years, things have progressed so much in 2 years. Regarding pronouns, I have not broached the subject of using they them pronouns with my sister because, again, they them pronouns is a language thing, and as much as she might try to be supportive with pronouns too, I think it would really be confusing for her, and right now I don't want to ruin the good things that I have going on. So she's trying to use Vesper more. Let that sink in first, I guess, one step at a time. And maybe in the future I'll bring up pronouns, but at this point I don't know. And so since I'm not using they them there with my sister, even though my mom knows my preferred pronouns, actually I don't even call them preferred pronouns, they're just my pronouns, my mom doesn't use they them there because, you know, she's often around my sister when she talks about me. So in order to not confuse my sister, they still use her, she, and as much as I hate that, I'm happy with what I have right now, and I don't want to ruin that. I also want to point out that I left my mom with 2 other books as resources. One of those books is The Invisible Orientation, An Introduction to Asexuality by Julie Sandra Decker. You might know her as Swank Ivy on YouTube. She's a fellow YouTuber and an ace activist, and I bought 2 copies, so this is my personal copy. I bought 2 copies of this like practically when it was first released, but the copy that I intended to give to my mom, I went through. This is a pretty sizable book, as you can see. It's really awesome, full of awesome content. You should get it. But my mom is not a reader at all. Like, she doesn't read anything but her Bible. So I went through this book and I highlighted things that I feel are important that she should see. I added a bunch of post-it memos with notes. And so, full of highlights and memos, I gave this book to her so she can not just use Google, but actually have an actual book to reference. The other book that I don't have another physical copy of, so I can't show you, but it's called The Gender Book by Mel Hill, Jay Mays, and Robin Mack. So it was a crowd-funded book. A couple of years ago, I helped fund it. It's a really awesome, like, primer introduction to trans and non-binary identities. It's very illustrative, so I thought that my mom might get something out of it, because you can flip to a specific page to find out a specific thing about a specific gender or issue or concept or whatever. So I left my mom with those 2 books, hoping that she'll actually look at them. But anyways, both of those books are also available as ebooks that you can download. I'll put links to them in the description. Please feel free to download them or actually buy them and support their authors. So in conclusion, the trip back home was stressful as fuck, but some good things came of it, so I'm happy that I went. The trip, however, has left me really emotionally and mentally drained. Aside from dealing with my hella dysfunctional family in general, it pained me to see how much my mom's health has gone downhill in my absence. And for those of you who are new to this channel or just haven't seen my older videos, my mom was diagnosed with a type of cancer, blood cancer, a couple of years ago, and she has lots of other health issues going on in general, but seeing her for the first time in over 2 years, you know, I could tell things had changed. And she actually commented to me during our trip to San Francisco. We went to San Francisco together for 3 days. She actually commented that that trip would probably be our last family trip together, and yeah. So yeah, as great as some of the vacation was, I feel like I've come back to Japan with a lot on my plate. Like, I've always had a lot on my plate, but I feel especially mentally, emotionally strung out right now, and So my way of dealing with that is just trying to not think about it and pretend like nothing is going on and try to keep myself busy. But at the same time, it's hard to focus on things and to motivate myself to do things. Yay depression and yay winter. So yeah, bear with me. Anyway, hopefully 2016 we'll see a lot more content on this channel, and hopefully it just won't be a shitty year in general. Thank you for watching this hella long video. Please feel free to interact with me in the comments or on social media. I'm a lot more active on Tumblr, on Twitter, on Instagram than I am on YouTube because it takes me a little bit to actually film a video and put it up on here. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye.